in the generals. Nearly every ball is a funeral. And when we batting, brother, go and put your men on the boundary line. And if you give we a liquor, that is merely a hiccup. Look, you win the little battle, you lose the war. It's the same result every time. Everybody sing. Here come the West Indies. Here come the West Indies. Them rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here come the West Indies. I tell you now, here come the West Indies. Here come the West Indies. Them bad boys gonna bring you to your knees. Here come the West Indies. Special request to the Trini posse. And what about the Guyana posse? And what about the Jamaica posse?
Imagine.
West Indians turned, as they have always done, to their cricket team for inspiration.
It's running away over the outfield into the fence for 4. What a start by Lara.
In 1993, Brian Lara from Trinidad hit the headlines with 277 against Australia. But rather than the physical destruction wrought by Richards, Lara relied on quick footwork and perfect timing.
One player I wouldn't want to get going against us is Brian, because once he gets going, he controls the pace, the momentum of the game so well.
And God, great shot. Magnificent.
His footwork, his back lift, flair, consistency, scoring big runs is just unreal.
Lara showed a single-minded determination in his batting, and in 1994, against England, he set his sights on breaking Gary Sober's record for the highest ever test score.
I was playing last test against England 1994. We'd already won the series. Good batting track. If there is a record that is attainable, Brian will have a go. Where maybe you'd say Viv, I think he was a better batsman, but Viv was only driven to dominate. So if he could dominate for a period, see his team to a good position, the record, wherever it stood, had no interest to him. Whereas Brian would add that to what he wanted to do.
And there's his 150.
I have a sneaky feeling that he set his stall out from the minute he got to about 150. His brain works at a phenomenal speed. I think he would have done his mathematics in his head and set his stall out from as early as that.
Here comes Chris Lewis to Brian Lara. He's gone for a pull, and there it is. Brian Lara's done it. The ball rockets into the boundary.
Sobers was one of the first onto the field to congratulate him. Lara had played with typical finesse and style and was finally out for 375. And later that summer, while playing for Warwickshire, Lara went further, smashing the record for the highest ever first-class score with an unbeaten 501.
Somebody to make 500 in a first-class game, teams don't make that, full teams. If a team makes 500, it's a monumental score for a team. And yet Lara had the mental strength and the ability to do that. Hardly ever perspired, hardly ever looked tired when making those runs. He was something else, he really was.
By breaking these records, Lara attracted worldwide attention. With the global market for cricket expanding, he exploited his new celebrity status.
This is now the age of globalization. This is now a different political and economic world. And Brian straddles these two worlds. He reflected the commitment, the anxieties of the nationalist period coming after Viv Richards and Clive Lloyd. But at the same time, he took the team and cricket into the age of mass television, internet property rights, the player as a commodity, an entrepreneur, and he became certainly the Caribbean's first millionaire cricketer.
But despite Lara's individual success, the West Indies team was beginning to show signs of decline. And in 1995, they lost their first series in 15 years to Australia, who now became the acknowledged world champions.
And he's gone! And that's
The surprise of losing to Australia at Sabina Park, the whole dejection of it,
gave a flat feeling. There was a sense of disbelief, I think, that permeated the Caribbean as well. And it should have formed the determination to spur us on to greater things. But I think we were going down a path at the time as a region in terms of cricket that we didn't realize how serious it was.
In 1998, Lara was appointed captain with the hope that his individual achievements could inspire the team to success again. But ahead of the first ever West Indies tour to South Africa after apartheid ended, Lara led a players' strike, refusing to tour until the board offered the players more money.
All I can say is that what has taken place is very unfortunate. The decisions from the board, it's something that we did not want to. And we just have to hope that things can work out in the near future because we want the South African tour to take place.
The board eventually backed down, but the dispute highlighted a shift in priorities for this generation of West Indian players who were no longer content to play for pride alone. Watching this crisis unfold was Clive Lloyd, who had been appointed manager for the tour.
It's damaged world cricket, this, though, hasn't it?
I wouldn't say that.
But it has caused damage, hasn't it?
Oh, it doesn't cause. If we had a little problem and we sorted it out.
You nearly didn't tour here.
Well, nearly never killed the board yet.
So
we messed it up badly. But this was the first official tour. We were looking forward to it for ages. And I thought that the leaders of that band of players didn't realize the importance of what, our cricket was all about, our cricket in general. And they made a mistake there, and a very, very bad one.
The tour was a disaster. The Windies were humiliated by South Africa, losing the series 5-0. Having dominated world cricket for so long, the West Indies suffered a dramatic slump, barely winning a match over the next decade. And the record-breaking Lara was blamed.
miscue, caught it on. Donald wins the battle in the end.
His achievement should have been the catalyst for setting the so-called rules on how West Indies cricket could make that turnaround. And I'm afraid to say he didn't do that as well as we thought.
But as a batsman, Lara continued his extraordinary run-making. And in 2004, he set a new Test record with 400 not out against England.
Batty to Lara. There goes the sweep. There it is.
Exhausted from the expectations on him, Lara retired in 2006 as the leading run scorer in the history of the game. But he left with West Indies cricket in disarray, having failed to win a Test series in 5 years. And in the Caribbean, there was frustration as West Indies society continued to be beset by social and economic divisions.
What has descended upon the societies is a kind of hopelessness, a kind of disillusionment about what their leadership was supposed to have provided, a kind of despair that their fortunes will not change, and a sort of a cynicism about where the societies are going.
Great catch!
And I think they feel the same thing about the cricket.
Today, a new generation of cricketers still turn out to practice and dream of future Windies success with bat and ball. Maybe here is a future genius, a Sobers, a Holding or a Richards, or even an inspirational leader, a Worrell or a Lloyd. And the current West Indies side are trying to recapture past glories.
Not in a hurry. That is a gorgeous delivery. Taylor has done what every man in the West Indies...
Whatever happens on the field of play and in the wider fortunes of the Caribbean, the West Indian team still remains the region's most important focus for pride and identity.
West Indies have won a famous victory, all out 51 England.
With them, as ever, comes hope and dreams beyond the boundary.
And good evening to you. Welcome to today's edition of Caribbean Cricket, West Indies Cricket, one 01. Opening there with some reflections going back to the 1990s. And of course, today at Trent Nottingham, after playing 3.5 days of competitive, good cricket in one session, it all folded. Flatter to deceive, I guess. The same old problem, doing the same thing over and over again, raising our expectations. Is it as C.L.R. James argued, is it beyond the boundary? Is the problem beyond the boundary? Beyond the boundary. Do we care? The focus in that clip that we showed, there was Brian Lara, the first millionaire cricketer, according to Professor Hilary Beckles. And Lara's been in the news in recent times. He's been commenting a lot on the cricket. And I've always said that the Lara that I see now, if that Lara was there 30 years ago when he was in his prime with bat in hand, the kind of consciousness I see coming from Lara now, if that consciousness was there when he had a bat in hand, I wonder what would have happened, could have happened. But he has written a new book, The England Chronicles, and there is an excerpt from the book that has been making the rounds, in which he talked about his relationship with Vivian Richards, Sir Viv, and Hooper's relationship with Sir Viv, and which in effect said Hooper was a better batsman, talent-wise, than he was and Tendulkar was, and that raised a lot of eyebrows. And earlier today, I saw a response from Richards and Hooper that said Brian was not being altogether accurate. They felt that that Richards was portrayed as a tyrant, and Hooper was at the receiving end of a lot of that. I remember when Hooper became captain that Viv Richards, I think, was on the selection panel at the time, and he was in, or he was the manager. Butcher will tell us, but he was always in Hooper's corner, and there was the thing there with Lara coming back to the captaincy, and there was always a suggestion that he undermined Carl Hooper and Viv. I remember saying he tried his best, and then there was something there with Gordon Greenwich, who I think was a selector at the time, and Carl Hooper. But that is a period, and perhaps Butcher will help, because he's a man very close to these things, and we're going to be talking some about that. So please share the link. Please share the link and let everyone know that we are on tonight. Dr. Adams is not going to be on tonight, but it's going to be Basil Butcher Jr. and myself. Please share the link. I know you all are, those of you in the United States and beyond, you all are glued to the big news today, the big political news in American presidential politics, but please spare a little time for cricket. And I know a lot of us are disappointed with what transpired at Trent Bridge today. I mean, I prepared this morning. For something good, And even though the bowlers did not, it seems to have been a tough wicket for our bowlers, but they stuck it out. They stuck it out. And they actually dismissed England twice, taking 20 wickets. That's although they made 400 twice. And then it all folded. But we have been there before. We have seen that before. And we keep pressing on. We keep pressing on because I think cricket is still the thing that holds us together as a West Indian society, a Caribbean society. And even in our individual countries, whether it's Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, Jamaica, Barbados, cricket is what holds us together. So please share the link and let us get going with the discussion tonight. Let me bring in Basil. Basil, good evening, my brother.
Good evening, Dr. Hines. Good evening to your viewers.
How are you feeling?
Look, I stopped getting emotional about West Indies cricket results a long time ago because I would probably be suffering from a lot of illnesses, right? So I have put myself in a position where I'm happy if we win, but I don't put too much expectations. So when we lose, I move on to the next, rather than what used to be in the past. When West Indies lose, or be depressed. I remember after moving to the United States for a while, and I went back home because you come away from that environment about how cricket emotionally affects us in the Caribbean. And I remember I was home one Christmas season, West Indies was playing somewhere, and we lost. And I went down to the market square later on that day, and as I'm walking around and interacting with people, everybody face long, people got in a bad mood. And it hit me again. It hit me at that point. Yes, I had not, been in that environment, how cricket affects our moods, having moved away from that environment. But yeah, I know Caribbean people all over the world are very disappointed. I saw it in the chat that I'm in, which is also a good barometer for me to see the emotions of people who are there in the region. I would tell you, I was expecting the game was going to go into day 5, that we would be talking today about what is West Indies' chances of overhauling this getting the 385. That was my thinking. I never thought that we would capitulate and get bowled out, even with overs to spare on the 4th day. Even more so, the start that we had today, 6-1 without loss. I was looking at, yes, tomorrow we will talk on Dr. Hines' show later on this afternoon about what are the chances of us getting to that total.
Get into that total. We played up until 61 without loss. I thought, given the inexperience that's in that team, I think we have done tremendously well. I mean, 3.5 days. I mean, we have taken it, and there was no conceivable reason that I thought, as you said, that we couldn't take this into the 50th. And even if we had lost, I would have felt good that this inexperienced team stretched the match into the 5th day. Let's try to dissect what happened in the match. We went in with the same team, except for the late change. Right. For Sinclair. On the first day, we bowled England out. I mean, they made 400 runs with the basketball story that was on, but we bowled them out in one day. What you make of that?
I think I'll tell you one thing. I think England got 100, or at least 100 more runs than they should have gotten had we taken our catches. Yes. One of the things, and this is across sport. The good or great teams do the fundamentals of that sport consistently. The not so good teams like ours, don't do it consistently. Hence, things like catches that the better teams would have taken those catches, right? The better teams would have bowled more consistently. We gave up too many boundary balls. It was almost like, to use the analogy, in the NBA, in the playoffs, you would say if a team don't come out with the same intensity to match the other team they're playing, that other team would run over them, and next year you look up on the board, in quick time is a 20-point lead or something like that. We came out on that morning beautifully, the first over, second ball, a wicket. So I was like, yes, we in business. And then we fell apart. The second over went for 19, and the train just kept going. None of the bowlers were able to come and stem that flow of runs. And we bowled too many short balls. We were all over the map. Some people, I would hear people criticizing Brathwaite and this and that. But as a captain, it's hard to set a field for bad bowling. If the bowlers are not consistent and not bowling to their plans, it's hard for you to want to be, for example, more attacking, right? And that's what happened on that first day. Remember we dropped the Centurion at 31 and I think at 46. On the cusp of lunch in that over when Athenaeus dropped him in the gully. No, that guy went on to make 121 runs, right? I mean, that's close to 80, 90 plus runs he added on. That's why I said, had we taken our catches, just looking at him, we taken off about 90 runs from the total, and we would have feel real good going in, close the play, bowling out England for let's say we bowl them out for 100 less. 316, we go and make how much we made, 450 odd or whatever we made, 450 odd, right? Now we would have had 100 plus run lead. Now we got England up against it, right? So those catches were so important. And I remember last week when I said to you, though, but I did say to you, I expected us to do a show, have a better showing than we had at Lord's. Yeah, and they did. And they, as you said, they stretched the English. This was a hard, tough win for England. This was not no walk-over win, because even the England skipper at the end, he was elated with what they did to get those 10 wickets for such small amount of runs. I think it's like 70 runs or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
We lost our 10 wickets. And he was elated because I'm sure he was not thinking we would get 10 wickets with that amount of runs after what had transpired in the first inning when we batted.
Yeah. Any positives? I mean, the bowling, I think you're right. I agree with you that it was indiscipline. But was there anything there that you saw that warmed your heart?
Yeah, I think today, this morning in the first hour, our bowlers, that was the best I seen them bowling the whole match. The consistency they showed. So maybe it's one of those things where these guys are having to warm up to the situation. They're playing elite international cricket, and it's taking them long to get their hang of it. But I think we bowled pretty good at times early this morning in the first hour or so of play. I think it bodes well that Hodge getting a century, that the other thing too, that we could bat an entire day. We batted over 100 overs. We batted more overs than England. And other positive is the first time we have scored 450 plus since 2013. This is over 10 years a West Indies team has not totaled that kind of runs. So those things I take as positives. I think there are things that you can see a work in progress. Louis, the positive from his end he has been able to bat for about an hour or so each time. But I think Louis still needs to add some stroke play to his game, because it's cool to see off the new ball, but you still as an opener need to be able to transfer pressure back onto the bowling team. And I don't think he has that array of shots yet in his arsenal, maybe not confident of them yet, to put pressure back on a bowling unit. Because if you remember this match, Craig Brathwaite outscored him mightily. The Craig Brathwaite that we say is the turtle of batting. I mean, in this second inning, Brathwaite actually went more than run a ball, 47 and 45 balls. I remember when he got to 47, he had 10 fours. So he was stroking it. He was getting boundaries left, right, and center, you know. And that was good to see also, because there were people who were calling for Brathwaite's head after the debacle at Lord's and saying, oh, you know, he make runs and so on. And Brathwaite actually came out and led from in front, put the challenge to the other batters. We got to be positive and so on. And if Brathwaite could be positive, everybody else could be positive.
Yeah. In case you're just joining us, yes, it's Caribbean Cricket, West Indies Cricket 101. Basil Butcher Jr. and myself, we are reviewing the second test match that ended today at Trent Bridge. West Indies went down unexpectedly, went down for 130 odd. Quite disappointing. Let's zero in on a couple of things, Basil. Shamar hasn't fired in these two test matches. Coming off the high in Brisbane, in Australia, a lot was on his shoulders and so on. And he hasn't fired in two test matches. He hasn't looked the same. Shamar, talk us through what is happening there.
I think there's one thing we gotta always we have to remember. That test match was in January of this year.
Yes.
Shamar Joseph has not played in a 4-day match or a red ball match since then.
Yes.
Right? How much cricket has he played since then? I could count one IPL game, and I think it's 2 or 3 games, T20 games against South Africa prior to the T20 World Cup. So we would say he bowled a total of 12 overs since Brisbane in competitive cricket. We who live here in the United States and those who follow the NBA would remember when Michael Jordan retired from the NBA for 18 months and then came back at the closing weeks of the season. Even the great Michael Jordan was rusty. If you remember Orlando Magic knocking the Bulls out of the playoffs, and one of the highlights was Nick Anderson picking Michael Jordan's pocket and going down the court and scoring, right? So you cannot not play the game at that level for that amount of time and come back into that cauldron of competition and expect to fire. And then more so, the lack of experience bowling in, say, a place like England. One of the things people got to remember about Shamar Joseph, he is still very, very inexperienced despite the great performances in Australia. He still has a lot to learn about bowling, being a fast bowler, you know, and you're seeing some of those growing pains starting to emerge. We had the euphoria in Australia, but we've seen some of those growing pains emerging here in England in the 2 test matches, you know. So I think, you know, I'm not so surprised at his performance. I didn't expect he was going to run through the world like a hot knife through butter. I thought we would see some of these what we're seeing now, and he has to take these learnings, these experiences to make him a better bowler as he goes along. I would hope in the next test match that he can play through the entire test match without having to leave the field for cramps or anything of the sort, because that has plagued him now in the 2 test matches. I hope that he can be able to do that coming up next test match, and we could see a more consistent Shamar Joseph in the last test, as that would bode well for him going into the series we have against South Africa in August in the West Indies.
On the other hand, Seals has taken 2 4-4s, and he justifies he's a reflection of the argument that you're making. He has been playing county cricket in England for the last 2 to 3 months, and it is obvious that the fact that he has been playing competitive cricket, the fact that he's been playing in England, has worked for him in these 2 test matches. Your comments?
Yeah, Seals was a guy even before he got the injury. He was a guy that bowled consistently. That's the reason why he got the new ball ahead of Alzarri Joseph, if you remember.
Yes.
He shared the new ball with Roach. He came into the team and usurped and jumped ahead of Alzarri Joseph with the new ball, right? Because he was a guy that bowled consistently, and that's what you want with a new ball bowler, because you want a new ball bowler to be putting pressure on the opening batters or getting them out, right? And I saw a couple of his games outings when he played county cricket. He was a leading leading wicket taker at the time when he left the county scene, and he has bowled well at times. I mean, there were times he bowled. I mean, because remember the first morning, he was the one that got his shellacking.
The 19, yes.
From Mr. Duckett, But I think this morning was probably his best showing to date in the series. There was one time that remember they showed the graphic of him grouping the balls all in one area, and that was something we hadn't seen from any of our bowlers. Hopefully he can carry that, because his last efforts in this test match as a bowler, he was doing a very good job, and I hope he can take that into the last test match. I got a feeling England is not going to play Mr. Wood, because they want to keep Wood in cotton wool. They want to. This is an asset. They want to make sure they got in all pieces. They got Sri Lanka coming up, and then they have their Ashes, right? And we see how important Wood is to them, because in my opinion, I thought Wood was a cause, in one particular instance, the cause of Louis getting out. Because what Wood was doing on the one end, and Louis get the spinner and get some relief, he hit the 1-4, he said, he's saying, let me take this guy out here, right? And went for it again, because, after that over, it's back to Mr. Wood. And, Mr. Wood had them hopping and skipping, right? And all of that, he hit the ball and got caught. The guy took a great catch. But we saw how Wood is a serious weapon.
91%, 91 miles per hour average.
Yeah, and Dr. Hines, it was on a flat pitch. He bowled and was causing problems. And it made me remind me of what my dad told me many years ago. I telling you something, but 90 miles at border and so on. He said, no, skipper. 90 is 90. You bowl at 90. No matter what surface he bowling on, it's still 90. And you will be hurried if you take it for granted.
Yes. And I want to talk about Wood. I mean, because clearly his job is to bowl as fast as possible.
Yes.
But he was not overly erratic. And
exactly right.
He was putting the ball in places. I mean, I look at the working over our boy, Sinclair got today.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I mean, I love Sinclair, but I'm sitting there and watching and saying it's only a matter of time.
He was out of his depth.
Yes. It's only a matter of time before he goes. And I'm thinking about Alzari, who is charged to do the same thing for the West Indies, but he's not doing that. He's not consistent with the pace as Wood is. And he is erratic. I mean, he leaked over 6 runs per over for the series thus far.
Exactly.
You know, so make that talk to that comparison. Wood on the one hand and Alzari.
It was interesting. Not only Alzari, I think Shamar is also charged to run in and bowl flat out. Shamar is not no holding bowler or anything of the sort. That is left to Jason Holder. And if you will, to a lesser extent, Seals, right? The 2 Josephs are our battering rams, if you will, right? And I remember making a point on the first day. Shamar was bowling in the low 80s, 84, 80, 81, 82, and I was bowling, keeping down pace. And people were saying to me, well, you got to bowl with control and so on. And, well, I didn't know that control and pace are 2 separate entities. Mr. Wood showed you're supposed to do both, right? All our great fast bowlers bowled at 90 and they bowled with control, right? So pace with control is a serious thing, and that's his job to do. Some people have pointed out to me a technical flaw in Alzari, and I went and I looked because person said they've been talking about it for a while, and I looked and I saw it, you know, and we had a long discussion in a chat, guys who are former West Indies players, fast bowlers, that concurred and said that technical flaw can lead to the inconsistency. You know?
And what is that technical flaw?
If when you see him at the point just before he releases the ball, instead of his trunk being fully upright, his trunk is slightly forward, right? So you'll get a variable of different balls being bowled, right? So now, why is that? Why the question now is, what is the solution to correct that? Because if you ever, when you look at pictures of fast bowlers just before they release, you would see all of them. The trunk is fully upright, and if you want, the spine is in an extended position as the arm is coming through, right? It's still after the ball is released out of the hand, then there's any flexion there in their trunk, right? And I see that's an issue. That's something I saw with Alzari, and I don't know where that stemmed. What is the reason for that? Because it can be a myriad of things he would have to check. But that is the end result of something that is not working like it should with him, and having that slight lean forward can cause, you know, not as consistent where he wants the ball to be hitting all the time. And we see the erratic nature of his bowling as a result.
Let's turn to the spin bowling. I thought Sinclair bowled decently, all things considered. But Bashir, who is also an off spinner, got a 5 for today, and the first 5 for at Trent Bridge in almost
since Molatorin.
Yeah, right. So
you know that's a while ago.
yeah. Is it a case of Bashir bowling to batsmen who are not adept at playing quality spin, or is it a case of him being a better spinner than our spinner? How do you?
I think for one thing, the pitch didn't take much turn, but Bashir is a guy that spins the ball. It's obviously spins the ball, right? Because you saw, look, you remember the one ball that went through Holder's gate, and
yes,
him, the bounce was that it went over the stump. You see how much that ball turned. I think Bashir also made a really good adjustment from the first inning to the second inning, where he was bowling a more attacking line, pitching outside the off stump. which would bring into play LBW, bowl down, caught behind all the various things. And as an off spinner, those who are good exponents would tell you, you want to try to have the batsman who looking to drive you through the offside, because then you're inviting the gate to open to bowl them down. Sinclair is a guy who doesn't spin the ball much. The thing that I don't with Sinclair also is he doesn't use the crease. You know, he bowls he looks to just bowl wicket to wicket. So he doesn't use and I think that's something he should invest in developing, because if you're not a big spin of the ball, you want to use the width of the crease so you could give the batter different angles. When he bowls around the wicket, he's bowling pretty much from the same place. When he's over the wicket, he's bowling pretty much from the same place. Although he may adjust his lines, but you still want to give the batsman an illusion when you come from a different angle, the trajectory where the ball is coming from, that they might think the ball is spinning when it may not be spinning. I mean, look at a guy like Rex Collymore, who was a guy who never spun the ball much. Right. But Collymore bowled from all different parts of the crease, right? And so you as a batter would get the illusion that the ball is turning into you. Really or not, it's not really turning. It's the angle that it's coming at, and it could force a foul shot. And so those are the things. Another thing Sinclair doesn't really do much is give the ball flight, right? So to beat the batter through the air, you know, those are skills in spin bowling. Those of us from yesterday year would be very adept to remembering, seeing batsmen getting beat in the flight. But with this advent of the T20 and so on, you don't see a lot of bowlers using flight, different loops, because that's a tool I feel all spinners should want to invest in developing. Be able to hit that length what we say is top or off length at different loops. So if you can do that, you got the batter disadvantage, because one ball will come through a little faster because the loop is different, but it's hitting the same spot. But then when you give it some air, it's hitting the same spot, but it's not coming as fast. So the batter, you know, could get beaten in flight, could look to come down to see the ball up in the air and look to use their feet and those kinds of things. So I think those are the things I see Sinclair would need to invest in terms of developing his artillery as an off spinner. You know, if he wants to be somebody who would challenge to stay in the team with his bowling to being an asset.
Yes. And of course, I mean, bowling from the front of the hand, so to speak, is you're predictable. Mm-hmm. You're not as unpredictable as the person spinning from the back of the hand. And so you need variation more when you're spinning. And Lance Gibbs, of course, was the exponent of that. Let's turn to the batting. Because in the first innings, collectively, we did well. I mean, 450 runs in what you said in more than
111 overs.
Off of 111 overs, we had a centurion. We had a big 50 from Atenes, who has been struggling, and so forth. So
the wicketkeeper and the Silva,
and we had the Silva, who I think, and let's talk about the Silva, because I think he has worked on. I always thought that he played the wrong spots too much, and the experts all say that.
Yes.
Yeah, but I looked at him, and I think two things. He's not playing a wrong spot as much as he did, but more than that, he's batting with intent, or he batted with intent in this match. What do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the things I know he likes to pull. He loves pulling. Yes, he got in trouble with that in Australia, but it may not be as fallible in England, where the ball isn't bunks with the same amount of bunks as in Australia, because he could see a ball at the length and think that the ball would be bouncing at a certain height. But then when the ball gets closer, it's bouncing a little higher. And instead of you getting all bat on it, you get the top edge and if you remember, in Australia, he got out like twice.
Yeah.
Going for those shots. I think the silver looked very positive because in that first inning there, he came out, the very first ball was 4 runs.
Yeah.
Right? He started off his account with 4 runs, and he was very positive. I think, it's a little, some might want to say a little petty. I thought he shielded Shamar Joseph too much against the other bowlers. I had no problem with shielding him against Wood, because Shamar can't handle Wood. And Shamar ended up getting out to Wood because he know he can't handle Wood. So he decided, look, I can just pelt me bat and hope for the best, right? But the others, he clearly could handle them because we saw that with those 2 mammoth sixes, breaking the people's roof. And a friend of mine told us that he was sitting within that vicinity when the shingles came down, right? Thank God that it didn't hit him. But yeah, so in that way, I thought we could get more runs had he trusted Joseph more. And I was saying something, this shielding thing is the best tactic. I know Sobers never shielded no tail ender. Sobers would run for the first run on the thing, because in a way what he did, he instilled confidence. He was nurturing the confidence. If we remember David Holford making 100 at Lords, Sobers never shielded him. He would run the runs, and Holford, as he kept batting, and end up got his name on the honors board there at Lords. We got many great West Indian batsmen, including Brian Lara, do not have his name up there. Holford's name is there. So, this shielding thing is not something I'm too, but I understood when it came to Wood. I would have shielded him from Wood, right?
Yeah.
But the others, let Shamar play. And he made a very valuable 33 for us.
That's right. And, I one of my earliest test matches that I looked at was 73, Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And Desmond Lewis and Lance Gibbs are batting last pair. Mm-hmm. Lance Gibbs, I remember making 25. I will never forget that.
Oh, that's 71.
That's 71. 71 against India. 71 against India.
I remember that's the thing I remember the most about that test match. Lance Gibbs making 25.
Exactly.
Score.
And Lewis didn't shield Gibbs. Gibbs had to handle his story. Right, mm-hmm. and then later on you see this shielding thing coming into cricket.
Yes.
So I never like it. I never like it. So I agree with you. Talking about pulling, I think let's get to Mr. Hodge, who I think pulled well.
Oh yes.
In the first innings,
yes.
I was amazed that the way he did it, but he, as we noticed, he was batting deep in his crease, which got him in trouble today. Right. He didn't work out for him today, but talk about it.
Yeah, Hodge plays well off the back foot. He's a good back foot player. So the pull, the cut, and so on are up his alley. And he likes to play spinners off the back foot. I don't know if that's because in the Caribbean the wickets are slow, so the turn is slow, so you can do that at times, and be successful. I think today, and it's funny, because Vincent, if he was here, he would tell you, one of the things he said he learned from our father was that when a new batsman come in, you feed him to his strength, because they're so confident, because you're thinking now like a batsman. This is a shot you could play rolling out to your bed, right? You're so confident it's one of your favorite shots. But when you just come, the feet may not be moving, all the rhythm, all the flow that you need to play that shot are not in place just yet. But you still don't go for the shot, right? And lots of times you could get guys out, having them to play where it's to their strengths very early in their inning, because they like doing that. And that's what Hodge did. He played on the back foot when at that early part in his inning, maybe he might decide, learn from that experience and say, look, I got to look to get on my front foot early. And maybe as I get into the flow of the game, I can look to play the spinners off the back foot, but not from ball one, so to speak. and it cost him his wicket.
Yeah, but I think I think coming at 5, he is very good for us. I like his temperament, and so on, which I think is exemplary.
Yeah, I mean, he has played now in his very short career 2 critical innings for us. The something in Australia when him and deceive came together at 69 for 5 and put us at a decent total. Because at that point when we were 69 for 5, I said, Lord of mercy, we got bowled out again for 140, and the 2 of them put on 140 something runs. And this inning, the partnership with him and Atenes, you know, that partnership put us in the driver's seat in terms of overhauling England's 416 in the first inning. So to date, he has played two very good. He's had 2 very good knocks in his very abbreviated test career.
Mr. Atenes slashing to goal in the first innings and nicking to first slip in the second innings. We've talked on this program about him and that off stump.
It's still a problem. It's still a problem. You could see it. The thing about it, he may get away at times with it on a wicket like what we played on today. But a wicket that got a little bunks or any kind of little lateral movement, he's going to get found wanting. More times than not, if you don't correct that. You know?
How do you correct that as a coach?
The batter, maybe the trigger movement of the batter. So when the batter goes into the trigger movement, they know they're covering off stump. So if anything passes outside the eye line, so to speak, they know it's not on it's going to miss their off stump, so they don't play. You know,
which West Indian batsman would you say is a study in knowing where you're off stump?
I mean, all of the good players were. I mean, let's just go back to our local Guyana. Remember one Leonard Beecham?
Oh, yes.
Well, if you did not bowl, Leonard Beecham would force you to bowl to him. If you bowl outside there, Beecham leaving, even at times if you beat him, it ain't bothering him. You know, you jump and Beecham just go back and sit back and then tap in the bat ready for the next ball, right? So that's an example in terms of you know, we of a certain age group would remember somebody who left the ball really well, and I mean, played a few test matches, but he played most of his cricket at first class and was really good at it. This guy was a really good lever too, Clayton Lambert. It looked unorthodox, so to speak. And I remember Clayton explaining to me, because when he explained to me what he was doing, it was genius. Because when his bat came down, it looked like he played and he missed, right? He played and missed, right? But he explained to me, no, his bat was coming down in the line of the off stump. So if the ball was outside the line of the off stump, it missed his bat. And if the ball came back in, the bat would be there to stop the ball. And I was like, that is genius, Clayton. That is bloody genius. You know? So Atenes has to work out a method for him to know how he knows where the ball is in terms of the line of his off stump or not. I mean, he has several options, but he has to find one that works, that he's comfortable with, that would work for him. I mean, you talk about Clayton. I remember telling this boy that got banned, Campbell. I saw him in New Jersey playing, and I had met him when he was under 19. I stopped in and I said, Campbell, I'm watching you bat. You know, you got some things there for us, but that off something. And I suggested for him to call Clayton Lambert, because both of them are left-handers. and get some insights from Lambert about leaving, developing a technique to leave the ball outside that is outside the line of the off stump. You know, as an opener, that opening batsman more than any other bat in the teams are the ones that got to leave the most, because they got to face the hard red ball that does a lot more than when the ball gets soft, you know. So you have to be a good lever, very good lever when you're playing Test cricket and opening batting.
Mr. Campbell, not Campbell, Mackenzie.
Well, Mackenzie, in my view, needs to go to the bench. Mackenzie has to go back to the proverbial drawing board and work on several things before coming back into the international team. Mackenzie has been, and this has continued. I mean, he showed us a little something in Australia, but since Australia has just been going down in the first class season, just past there. This is just a continuation of what we saw in the first class season.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I felt so sorry for him because he seems to be at sea. Can barely get.
I mean, the shot that he got out to today. What was he doing? What was he playing at that ball? That ball was outside, right outside his off stump. There's no need to play at that ball, and he still did and gave away his wicket. You know, I'm like, come on, guy.
All right, so we are going to what? Edgbaston, the next match, right?
Friday.
How does that wicket play these days?
That would be interesting to see how it would play. I'm not so zoned in as to the different histories of the different pitches, how they play, and so on and so forth. But I get the feeling it would be somewhat similar to what we saw at Trent Bridge. Maybe it may have more pace than Trent Bridge. We'll see.
We'll see. Any consideration that we could go with 3 fast men and play 2 spinners?
Not at Edgbaston.
Not at Edgbaston.
Not
All
yet.
Right. All right.
I don't see Sinclair playing. I see Moti coming back.
Yeah, Moti has to come back. The
other thing, I hope Sinclair did not get his forearm broken.
Yes, I was wondering. I was looking around.
Well, let me tell you, that was the first thing came to my mind. I hope this Bayan didn't get break.
Yeah, I was looking to see if there was any news.
There's a mob holding at 90 plus and hit you in your forearm. I mean, many have got their forearms broken just that way.
Yeah, that's bone.
Yes, there ain't not much muscle there.
Yeah.
You know? Meeting between there, you know. I am sure right now Sinclair forearm is probably swollen.
Yeah.
And I just hope that nothing broke.
Right. I was looking to see.
And he just get probably a bad bruise because he would be competing for a place in the team against South Africa. So
right. Where we could be going with 2 spinners.
Yes, it would be because look where they played the 2 games, Trinidad and Guyana.
Right.
There is room for having 2 spinners in the team.
Yeah, and those matches are in a matter of weeks, 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
All right, let's turn to Mr. Lara's book.
Yes.
And the revelations.
I heard you at the introduction.
Now, what do you make? Put all this stuff aside about Viv making people cry and so on and so forth. What did you make of his analysis of Hooper?
I'll tell you this. Back in 1998, after we won the test match against England, Clive was the manager of the team, and he invited my dad to come over to DCC for a drink after the game. And I was with my father, and I was heading over to DCC anyway, so I jump in the car. There were 5 of we piled in the car with Clive, and we pull up there. And my friend, I'm sure you probably heard his name. He played on the 19th for Guyana, a fast bowler named Roger Boxill.
Yes.
Right, well, Boxill and another friend, a guy named Lennox Webb, we all used to travel every year to the Caribbean to watch cricket. The 2 of them were Hooper men. I was in Lara Man. So we always had the clash as to who better. And Boxer went up to the umpire and said, Butch, I got a question for you. What are your opinion of Carl Hooper as a batsman? And my dad said to Boxer, Carl Hooper is the most technically equipped batsman he has ever seen. And he said, but the runs don't match up, right? So essentially, my father was agreeing with Lara, what Lara was saying about Carl Hooper.
Yeah. I mean, the world must have been stunned. I mean, to hear Lara say neither Tendulkar nor himself could match.
Yeah, well, those who saw Hooper bat would know what Lara was talking about.
Yeah.
In the sheer batting skill. We're not talking about batsmanship, no. We're talking about ability to play any kind of bowling, right? I mean, I tell you a story, the same 98 test match. Me and the same friend, Webby Lennox, we bet which one of we boys can make the more runs. Lara made 89 or 93.
Yeah.
And Hooper batting, he got to like 40 something. And I just got pissed. Because I said, Lord, Hooper got 100. This is 100. Oh, you make the bowling look so easy. Oh, it looks so easy. And I get so vexed, I walk out the border to go and buy a slow cone. And you know the two songs at when a man out or when a man hit a 4 or something. And it was the out roar I hear just as the man giving me a slow cone. So I rushing back to the ground. And as I walking towards the pavilion, who is walking back? Hooper. So I said, well, I win my money. But then I run upstairs. That was the first time they put monitors in the pavilion so we could see replays and thing, right? So I run upstairs and I look at the replay. Dean Heady gave Hooper a short ball, must still outside here, right? And he looked to pull. The ball was straight up in the air. Jack Russell take the catch. I mean, it's almost like he got bored and said, let me just try this.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the way he was batting, I had 100 in the teens because how easy he was making it look. Like he had no body in the world. You know? How he was playing these bowlers like almost like they were club bowlers. You know? And it would take something like that to get him out. I mean, he's played, I remember reading what Imran Khan said about the 140-something he made at Lahore. He said to make on a spinning, difficult track.
Running square.
The way Hooper played on that. So those people, those in the world that would be stunned by Lara's revelation, never saw Hooper bat. Because they did see Hooper bat, they would know what Lara talking about.
And in that same 1998 series, he compensated because we won, I think it was in Trinidad, when he was batting with little Dave Joseph. David Williams, sorry, not Dave Joseph. Dave Joseph is
I remember Lara saying that was the best he had seen Hooper bat. That was that inning that Hooper played. I mean, it's just the unfortunate thing that for whatever reasons, Carl has denoted it because there's a really great interview he did in Australia about looking back, reflecting on his career.
Yeah.
Some of the things that he felt had he done better, that because he even admitted that when he would hear that he gonna get dropped, he would make sure he get the score. That would carry him on, yes. Right? And the thing about him and Richards, I found that strange. Because I got another friend, him and Carl are relatives, and they played together, fast bowler. He's now a coach, Lynn and Fraser. And he would spend, when Carl started playing league cricket in England, the both of them would be rooming and so on. And he said Viv would take his time when he had time off from his county team and come down to where Carl was to hang out with him and so on and so forth. So the thing about Carl and Viv that struck me. My antennas went up because all that phrase would tell me about Viv and Carl was contrary to that characterization that what he talked about. And I actually heard this with my own ears from Viv, talking about Carl Hooper. And when he spoke about him in the most glowing terms. And you also noted, because you said to give you clarification, the whole thing with the captaincy and so on. Yes, Viv was the chairman of selectors, Gordon Greenidge and Joey Carew, the other two selectors. And they, as a panel, Carew and Greenidge voted to recommend Lara to replace Hooper's captain. Viv was against it.
Yes.
So it went to a vote at the West Indies board. It was a most contentious meeting from what I have heard. And it was a very slight win for Lara to be to regain the captaincy. And in my view, if it's not close to consensus, you don't change captains.
Right.
The left Hooper as the captain. Something where it was so contentious, it was a winning, I think, something like 2 votes more than the other. No, that is not enough to make a change in my view. But just simply majority, like what we do in Guyana with the electoral politics, where I know confidence with one person, like what Sharon Das did. I think that's nonsense. One person cannot overturn, in my view, the verdict of more than half the nation. It should be some real special majority where you're talking about 2/3 or something like that. But anyway, that digress. But I don't think such a contentious meeting should have you would come out and change a captain. It should have remained with Hooper.
Yeah. And I remember Greenidge's comments at the time, and apparently Greenidge was peeved with Carl for retiring and coming back. I got that sense that he felt that Carl had walked away and he didn't deserve to think. But I remember his scathing comments.
Yeah, I mean, and Carl, maybe because he didn't at the time give a proper thing, but it turned out his son had some health challenges and he needed to be with his family, with his son, to support his son through that period. And he had to walk away again, because at the end of the day, your family is more important than cricket, right?
Right.
And we saw when, because that's where we first met.
Right.
In his comeback.
He made 1,000 runs
it's almost like they couldn't get him out in the
first class season.
Yeah, because in that same interview in Australia, he talked about how hard he trained and went and played the Premier League grade cricket on these green bouncy tracks, cement track. And regardless of what level of cricket you play in Australia, they got fast bowlers. They got men bowling fast, right? And he said after playing on those kind of pitches, coming to these flat tracks in the Caribbean, it was like taking candy from a baby.
Yeah. Yeah. You said you were a Lara person. The Enigma, great. Certainly, Lara was great. Plenty runs. You can't, if you're picking on runs, Lara would have to be your first pick. But some other problems. Was he too selfish? Was it what?
I would say I don't know how much this whole thing was selfish, because what I would say, I don't think Lara was a good leader.
Okay.
He's not a good leader of men. He was not a good leader. He had 3 bites of the cherry and he failed it each time, right? He tactically and so on in the cricket field, he is par excellence. But being a leader of men, that was something he never was able to master. He even went as far as to say, when they had that test match for the tsunami in Australia, the rest of the world playing Australia, and Graham Smith was the captain of the rest of the world team. He made a comment stating to Graham Smith, he made a comment saying, Graham Smith will see now how it feels like to captain the West Indies team, because here he'll be captaining players from all these various nations you know, and he'll see how challenging that could be. And I guess he was relating that to his experiences as captain of the West Indies team, captaining guys from different countries, got, you know, cultural nuances and all those things. And that was an egg I don't think Lara was able to crack. You know, Lara was a guy who had a keen interest in records. That is well known. He had a very keen interest in records. Whereas a guy like Viv and Sobers, they were entertainers, right? If the records fell while they were entertaining, so be it. But they were not interested in records, right? Lara had a keen interest in records. I think Lara also had a keen knowledge of West Indies cricket history. He knew of the players from the past, you know. When I met him the first time and I told him my name, right away he knew who my dad was. And it's funny, my dad actually played against him as a youngster. He was back in the 80s, I think it was. In the 80s it was. They had put together all these former West Indies players, my father, Charlie Griffith, Wes Hall, Lance Gibbs, and they were going around the Caribbean playing these exhibition matches. And what was funny, people were telling me the ground was more packed to see them than the current West Indies team, which was the best team in the world, mind you. And my father was telling me when they played in Trinidad, Lara was one of the youngsters played in the game, and he got Lara out. And then when he got him out with the googly, he said, "Mr. Butcher, I didn't know you bowled the other one."
Yeah. I you know, I mean, I suppose people write things and they sell books and so on, but I do like the present Lara. Not that I didn't like the Lara in his past, of course I loved him, but I think the present Lara really is, he shows a sense of consciousness. I think when I listen to those ex-cricketers who are doing commentary now and so on, I mean, I respect Ian Bishop, who I think is out of this world when it comes to analyzing cricket. But I think I more and more when Lara speaks, I like the way in which he's linking the cricket on the field to beyond the boundary, which is always where I look,
right,
to really see whether someone understands the game from a West Indian standpoint. Yeah, go ahead.
This is the second time recently, well, not so recent, that Lara has gotten into hot water with former players of the comments he made. He did a speech, what they call the MCC speech, years ago, and was very accusatory to the West Indies players in that test series in New Zealand in 1980. You know, when the series when Holden kicked down the stumps, Croft brushed the umpire shoulders, he running in and so on, and he was talking about fair play and little boy, and that was not the way to do it, and so on and so forth. And I think I was very disappointed with his speech because I thought it lacked context, because as Holden pointed out, one of the things that came out, not right away, but down the line, was neutral umpires, right? And I don't think Lara, maybe, I don't know if he was keen of the history, but I can tell you, my father told me every time the West Indies went away to play during the time he played, they were always playing against 13, right? So Lara came up in an era where it wasn't like that so bad, so that was a little disappointment with that speech. Now this whole thing now with Viv and Hooper and so on, because I remember an incident with him and Viv on that same tour in 1991. And this was recounted by Bishop and Walsh, where they're in a team meeting and Viv talking about shot selection. And Lara said, "Well, what about you, Skipper? Your shot selection is not up to par."
Management by
Guys, Viv give Lara a look, the whole room get quiet. The look that Viv gave Lara, according to those who were in the room, if looks gonna kill Lara, would have been a dead man. But after the meeting, it's either Bishop or Walsh was the person who they had on Brian's shoulder and say, hey, Brian, you don't question the big man.
Oh boy.
I mean, in the real sense, Lara was correct, because it's every player's shot selection has to be examined. Not the captain is not exempt, but not the ship that Brian was running. And I remember another player who was on that tour, even though it was Viv's farewell tour. The player told me when they were playing the county matches, the people came not so much to see Viv. They came to see who was this new prince they were talking about. You kind of dubbed him the prince. And crowds were coming into these county games to see this prince, you know. And, you know, some say, you know, Viv was like, here, you can't get two kings on the throne. At the time.
Okay. Basil, it's that time, my brother.
Yes, sir.
I hope next week we'll be into the third day next week.
Yes.
The
game will be still in the balance.
Right. We hope.
Let us end this series on a better note than the. I mean, we improved from the first to the second test. Let's take that improvement and push it to another level, hopefully coming out with a victory in the next test. But, you know, that's the thing about the West Indies thing, why I said to you about the emotions. I could no longer, in the past, you know, we're of the age where we as these players test match, we fully well expected them to win. These days, there is no such expectations. You're hoping and praying that they can compete. They're not even going as far as winning.
McCaskey or Imlach coming in for Mackenzie?
I would pick McCaskey simply because McCaskey was the third was the opener in the third depth chart when they went to Australia. You know,
so he's up the pecking order.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, my brother. See you next week.
All right. Take care.
All right. And to you, the audience, thank you for coming. I notice a lot of you are coming in at 7 o'clock next week. We may move to 7 o'clock because the 6 o'clock seem to be too early and people are accustomed to the 7 o'clock. So next week, we are going to move to 7 o'clock so as to make sure that everyone, because a lot of you came in at 7. So next week, we're going to start at 7. So until then, I'll see you all during the week, those of you who are into politics. And next week, we're going to come back with another edition of West Indies Cricket 101.
Rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. And when you're facing the generals, nearly every ball is a funeral. And when we batting, brother, go and put your men on the boundary line. And if you give we a liquor, that is merely a hiccup. Look, you win the little battle, you lose the war. It's the same result every time. Everybody sing. Here comes the West Indies. Here comes the West Indies. Them rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. I tell you now, here comes the West Indies. Here comes the West Indies. Them bad boys gonna bring you to your knees. Here comes the West Indies. Special request to the Trinity posse.